working for Finnair, so Finland's flag carrier. And technology that I used in Finnair, including ReactJS, Angular, Node, and Golang is my personal thing. PHP is like ages ago. And cloud, I'm using lots of AWS. And QML is basically a UI language because I am in Finnair developing a sit-back screen in the airplane. You see those screens that you watch movies and stuff. So in that screen, I'm using QML. And yeah, I'm not using Svelte in my professional work at all. And yeah, and continue. So who is it going to benefit the most is that if you have a little bit of knowledge about web in general, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and it would be really good if you know some sort of like framework before, like React, AngularJS, Angular, Vue, anything would be benefit. And if you are very much extremely experienced in Svelte, I'm afraid that this would not be that much beneficial for you guys. All right, I'm gonna start thing by showing you guys a little bit of this timeline for the front-end framework. You know, back in the days when we have these inline HTML in PHP, you know, those legacy code, and that's like ages ago. We have everything inside PHP and even the server-side rendering and everything like that. And then the jQuery was sort of like a breakthrough at the time where you can adding all stuff like cool animations and all the event listeners that sort of like listening to your DOM and stuff like that. And then we have Backbone, Ember. I still remember that my older brothers told me to learn Backbone when I was like in high school, and I have no idea what is JavaScript, and now there's a Backbone thing. But when I started my college, that's when AngularJS was so huge at the time. So every single body was talking about AngularJS. It's like a huge breakthrough after jQuery. And as you know, the digital world developed, we cannot use AngularJS anymore because it's a bit slow. And then we have React. And then after that, when Google found out that React is really good, they introduced Angular. And then the community came up with VueJS. And since then, it's a battle of those three giants. But it kind of looks to me like React came out ahead in every single way. So I'm just putting there React, React, React. So what would be like the next one that can possibly taking down React? You know, Angular and VueJS came a bit close already, but it's, to me, it kind of seems like React is still beyond their reach to actually be the best framework for front-end. And, you know, Angular and Vue, they sort of having the same kind of approach to front-end anyway. So there's no breakthrough in those. And here comes, we have SvelteJS. It was introduced about 3 years ago. And right now, I think we have Svelte 3 at the moment, which was introduced last year. It's sort of like a middle ground, you know, between your vanilla JS, you know, your normal JavaScript, HTML, and then the modern framework like ReactJS. And in a way, it can like help you to, you know, rethink about front end. Okay, the most sort of like the most basic propositions of Svelte is performance and speed. If you look at these two bits of code that I have right here, and the above one is basically a pure JavaScript that you have, you know, an event listener to listen to your HTML input, and then sort of like changing the HTML when your input change, basically. And that's the native DOM. And the below is basically almost all this modern framework is going to look like, but I'm taking out React in this case. So you have your DOM right here, and then you put in sort of like listener to this name, and then you change it, and then you're doing on sort of like set state, and then you have that. It's running through different functions, and then it's re-rendering your DOM. It comes to the point where I can sort of like introduce to you guys about this React concept of virtual DOM. I think a lot of you guys might have known about this already, but for some of you haven't, know about virtual DOM, it's basically a core concept of ReactJS, where we always have some sort of like virtual DOM in your history. So, and that virtual DOM is synchronized with the actual DOM that you can see in the browser. And every time you change something, right, you change the state or whatever, that virtual DOM is going to compare what has been changed, and it's doing on sort of like reconciliation, which is the React word for it. And then once it figures out what has been changed, it's going to re-render the thing. So in practical terms, it's adding some additional operators to your native DOM and to do all that checking and rendering. When React was first introduced back in the days, back in like 2015 or 16 or something, people say that virtual DOM is really fast. Yes and no. To me, the very much correct answer would be, it is fast enough. Or you can say that it's not that slow for users to use virtual DOM. And the reason why the virtual DOM was sort of like the huge thing back in the days was that it gave front-end developers so much more comfort in coding compared to what we have back then, which is AngularJS. It gives some sort of like hot reloadings and stuff like that. So what I would say is that the DX pros, which is the developer's experience pros, sort of outweighs the UX cons. So you enjoy coding that, and that sort of like outweighs a little slowness when it comes to user experience. I can come back to the questions they posted, and you can see that the above code is a pure native DOM with a pure JavaScript, nothing else. Like you have event listener, you have nothing else. So of course it's going to be better for speed. It's going to be better for UX. But the below code here is going to be better for your developers. It has sort of like set state, one way data binding from React. It's easier to manage and stuff like that. What if we have something that is sort of like the best of both worlds, sort of like the Lexus in the cars, where you have that luxurious from German and you still have the reliability from Toyota, right? And in SvelteJS, you are still able to writing what it looks like a JSX, like in React. And you have on sort of like life cycles, state management, reactivity, and stuff like that. But when you compile it, you're getting a native DOM API. So you're writing what you normally write in React and stuff like that. And then you get what is the normal API, nothing else. And it's like the core concept of SvelteJS. So Svelte is basically a compiler. It has no runtime at all. Every time you coding something, the compiler is going to run through your code, and it's going to give you a bundle, and you sort of like using that bundle to show on the browser. And because there is no runtime at all, it ships a smaller size to the browser. It bundle a smaller bundle to the browser, and also, you know, bootstrapping the page is going a lot faster because it doesn't have to go through all sort of like unnecessary function that you have in virtual DOM reconciliations and stuff like that. So this is the primary propositions in Svelte. It is the compiler. All right, I can show you a little bit of the example of Svelte file, but I have to show you the real code, which is, I'm sorry. Yep. So I have here the basic app name, and in this app you have here the name, and then you have like your age, and then you're typing the name here. It should change this one, and you change the age. This change this one. I'm going through each of the code actually. So the app.svelte is your main app file and your main components, and then you have your greeting component, which we use down here is the children component. So I would say I'm going to start with I'm going to start with the greeting component. So the greeting component is basically to render this sentence right here, and it's sort of like a dump component. It doesn't do anything actually. It only shows what it has. So the first thing, you can see the import here. I can talk about it a bit later, but it's sort of like importing a transition in styling in Svelte. But the second line and the third line is very magical. The export let. This is something only Svelte can understand. So you exporting whatever we use as a props from the parents. So if you know about React or Angular or whatever, you can sort of understand it. So we have in here, we're passing out greetings, and then we have to do the export here. We are sort of like receiving that that value from the parents, and then we have the styling, which is in the same file with all the other script and HTML. And the whole thing makes you a component. This styling is very interesting that I'm going to, I thought Dane was typing something, but yeah. This styling is very much useful. I'm going to point that out later on. And then you're rendering this sentence, which is normal. You have in fade, which when it's appear, it's sort of like doing the fading. Out slide, where it's not appear, it's doing the sliding. Then you have this hello uppercase name. My age is age, is getting value. And here's this. I think I put here at the wrong place. Sorry, it should be here. Oh, all right, we have it here. Okay, we have a first bug. Ah, yeah, no, it's not a bug, sorry. Yeah, like that. The changes. Yep. All right, we can get back to our main Svelte component, which is the app.svelte. First thing we do, we importing greetings from our greeting component here. And then we initialize the name and the age. And once you initialize on this name and age, it's going to be your sort of like your state that you can reuse later on in your HTML. And then this line is one of the core features of Svelte, this dollar sign that you can see here. So Svelte is all about reactivity, right? And in order for you to have a reactivity code, it must be that once you change something, the value that follow that up should change as well. So let's say I can create another file. Let me see here. Some random file here. So if you have a equal to 1, and then b equal to a plus 1, right? And then later on you have some sort of a func to deal with a some a b, something like that. So every time a changed, the b doesn't change yet. You had to run some sort of like function to make the b change according to the a. But in reactivity code, every time a change, then the b is sort of like listening to that a, and it's going to change accordingly. So in reactivity code, it's going to look something like that. Okay, we can get back to our main components. So the dollar sign here in this case is a valid JavaScript label syntax. So just happen to be a dollar sign. You can use a dollar sign in JavaScript normally. And then Svelte take the advantage of using the dollar sign and make it a sort of like an announcement to tell to the compiler saying that whatever happened here is going to be a reactive statement. And since this one is reactive statement, you can see the uppercase name here is going to rely on the name to uppercase. So whenever the name changed, this uppercase name is going to change accordingly. So you don't have to run any sort of like function to actually make this uppercase name changed. And here we have to basic function to change the name and stuff. All right, this is only the text. And here this if, else, and then the end of if, it's sort of like the mustache syntax that you might have encountered if you're using Ember.js back then. So this is your if else statement normally to render the stuff. So if we have something in you uppercase name, we render this. Otherwise, we're going to show the empty input. It also has some sort of like each as a syntax as well. But I'm not gonna show you guys here. You can do that later on if you want. And then if we have something in uppercase, we render the greetings. Otherwise, we're going to render this empty input. Here are two buttons, and then we listen to that button, and then every time there's a click, we're running these two functions we have here. All right, so here would be something that interesting. As I told you guys, the uppercase name is going to be whatever the name is going to be, right? And it's running this to uppercase function. So you can see here, every time I do the change name, it's going to make it Hoang new. And then in here, what I'm passing down to the greeting component isn't name, but it is uppercase name. So once I click this, it's going to change to Hoang name. The name is going to change to Hoang new, and then it's going to change this uppercase, and then it's going to passing down the uppercase with the new Hoang new to greetings, and they're going to render it here, something like that. So that's where the reactivity comes in, and it's very useful in Svelte. And right, we have the last one, which is the input statement. Now the input tag we have, And then the bind.value is basically the sort of like whenever the value in the input tag is going to binding that to the name value up here. And again, with reactivity, whenever you change the name, whenever you change the value in this input, it's going to change the name, the value of the name, and therefore it's going to change the value of uppercase name. If I type in something here, you can see that it's here change. Do that. And now I'm removing everything. You can see that this empty input appears. And then you have this sort of like in fade outline thing. Yeah. It's quite straightforward to do transitions, animations in Svelte as well. All right. And then I'm going to go back about this styling thing that I was mentioning previously. What if I'm going to show you something here? We have the H1 defined in here, but if in the main component, if I have this H1, I'm saying that yep, you can see that this H1 does not getting a style from the H1 in here, which is supposed to have the color purple. This is also one of the very cool features in Svelte, is that the styling is scoped within your component. And you have the output in here. You can see that this is going to become something like that. And then this I7Q05M, something like that, is going to be the hash. So that only the H1 in this component is using this style. So whatever you do here is not affecting the main component at all. And that's really cool. So that's like the basic functions, the basic syntax with SvelteJS. And then I'm going to show you the same thing, but with state. I think like for some of you guys have used React or even Angular, they have sort of like state management, which is mobx, Redux, and in Angular it would be NGRX or NG, I'm not sure, but yeah, NGRX. All right, and here's the same thing, but with Svelte, and it's a lot more straightforward compared to the state management we have in Redux. In Redux, we have one sort of like you change something, you have the event, and you dispatch it, and then there's the listener, and it listens to that dispatch event, and it's going to do whatever you want it to do, right? In Svelte, it's straightforward. You're creating the store, and you putting this writable, and then whatever inside is yours, the content that you want to store. It can be an array, it can be string, int, whatever it is. Then you export it, and then in here you import it, and then you subscribe to that. And you can use it down here. It's very straightforward, and you guys can see that I'm still using this $sign right here. So basically, again, whenever I change the name, the uppercase name is going to change, and therefore the quitting component is going to change as well. Right now, I have nothing, doing something, and then there, that ASD. And yeah, that's about it, about state. I can get back to our presentation. So I think, I don't know if you guys have any questions about any of the syntax or stuff like that. If you do, just raise your hand, or you can put in the chat, and I can see that. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. So that's a that's the basic syntax of Svelte, and here it's just that code. All right, a smaller bundle sizes, and you can see Svelte using a bundle size compiler, named Rollup, but basically you can use Webpack or whatever you want. It's fine. And because there is no runtime in Svelte, so the bundle size is going to be so much smaller. And once you have a smaller bundle size, shipping to your browser is going to result in a faster loading time, right? And in these pictures, you can see it. I'm got it from FreeCodeCamp. So they basically doing some sort of benchmarking this all of this front-end framework, and you can see that Svelte came out quite ahead if you compare to the other giants like Vue, React MobX. We have React MobX here. We have Angular NGRX, and even in the number of lines of code, it's going to reduce significantly as well. As you can see from this basic app that I'm showing you guys, it's a lot more easier to understand and a lot more straightforward when it comes to like state, reactivities, and that sort of thing. And then when you want to build Svelte app, you basically just run npm run build. Okay, it's a file-based component. You can see it from the example I have. One component is basically one Svelte file, including a script tag, a style tag, and then the HTML, and just that. With Angular, you have a class, right? With AngularJS, you have a lot of things to define the components. You have your styling, you have your controllers, you have your template, a lot of things. And with React, you have like function, you can use class. With views, we have something called object literals. I don't use Vue that much, so I'm not entirely sure about it anyway. And for Svelte, there is no like sort of like containers needed. Everything is in one Svelte file. And then when it's sort of like in render, it becomes an old default export. So it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing when you have like file-based components. I can explain to it later. All right. We have some of the top Svelte features that you might want to know. First of all, it's really fast. It's a lot faster compared to any other frameworks in the current market at the moment. And it has quite small bundle size. And again, it helps a lot with the speed. It makes the app a lot faster. It's file-based component definitions. It can be a good thing is that it's easier for you to sort of like manage the files and stuff like that. But if your sort of your app get a bit more complex and you're building like 100 components, then that file-based component might result in a larger bundle size and you cannot handle that. It has a sort of like quite a flat learning curve for state management, for like Redux and stuff like that. I think I spent quite a lot of time to actually understand Redux and MobX and that sort of thing back in the days. And the state management learning curve for Svelte is a lot easier. And it has reactivities. And its reactivity is quite simple as well, and simple and straightforward. So I'm having questions from Sylvia, but I can get back to that after the presentation then. That would be good. Yeah. The styling is scoped so that whatever you put it in a component style is not usable anywhere else. And if you wanted to make it usable, you can easily use a global styling. Global styling is accessible everywhere in the app. And it has a Zapper, which is a third-party framework from Svelte, and it supports server-side rendering as well. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get some water. I'm a bit tired. And yeah, it's supporting end-to-end Cypress test, which I think the proper testing framework for Svelte has just been released recently. So before that, Svelte doesn't have any sort of like proper testing framework, but now they do. And it's also supporting end-to-end test, which is really good. And it has its mobile framework. It's Svelte native, but I don't do lots of mobile developing at all, so I cannot comment on that. I'm mostly doing backend and frontend only. Some additional reason why you might want to use Svelte is easy to understand. It's no runtime at all, so your DOM is a runtime. You run everything on your DOM, straightforward. The learning curve, it can get steep, but it can also be really flat if you have some background knowledge for other frameworks as well. I have talked about all the good things about Svelte, but what would be the bad things about it? So if you're an experienced developer, you might need to relearn some concepts, and especially those, no runtime thing, only compiler, no virtual DOM, stuff like that. If you're coming from React background, it does not have support for TypeScript yet. I don't know is it going to ever have support for TypeScript, but right now it doesn't. And if you're from Angular background, you might have a problem using JavaScript. And this is quite important. The third point is two-way data binding. It has lots of pros and also lots of cons, and it's like a controversial topic that back in the days, two-way data binding is the reason why AngularJS failed and React came out ahead. React doesn't have one-way data binding. Everything is sort of like managed, and you don't have to worry about those cascading layers that can affect your variable. But yeah, it can be a pro if you use it correctly anyway. So this personal thing, this two-way data binding. The community for Svelte is not large enough if you compare it to React or Vue or even Angular. So if you might stuck with the problems, you need to have a longer time to just discover what the hell is going on. Compared to React, everything is solved using Stack Overflow. Svelte hasn't got any supporting from giant companies like Angular has Google and React has Facebook. Space of like Vue is backed by community at the moment. And if you're using Svelte, you might not be familiar for other developers. So if you're using it professionally for like enterprise and stuff like that, it's not that easy to maintain since no other developers than yourself know about this framework. And then I have a random cons that I'm just figured out while I'm sort of like preparing for the presentation is that the Svelte word is so hard to pronounce. And I'm getting a bit tired every time I'm saying Svelte, and I'm saying it like 100 times in the past half an hour already. I'm so tired. And you might not think a lot about that as a cons, but when you go into like you do a lot of like Svelte coding, and then you meet other developers, you have to talk to them about your code. It's getting a bit tired, but yeah, it's just random cons. All right, after all, SvelteJS is still a David versus Goliath in this front-end battles. You still have a lot of work to do in order to compete against React, Angular, Vue, or even some other smaller framework. But right now, the popularity of Svelte, according to GitHub, is ranked 4th. So it does have some potential. And thank you for listening. Remember to wash your hand, disinfect your keyboard, disinfect everything, your monitors, your mouse, and stay safe. Stay indoors until the government allows you to stay outside. And I'm guessing that would be it for the presentations. And I'm sorry if I fucked up something in between. This is my first time talking to myself for like ever. So I'm not familiar with talking to myself for like a long time like this. And yeah, I get back to I'm gonna get back to some of the questions we have. Great transitions, great with control elements. Can we reuse the style between different components? All right, so from Vic Fang, I can answer you that. If you want to reuse the style between different components, you can put it in some sort of global CSS, and that is very much easy to access to. Can you use TypeScript? No, you can't, which is a very bad thing at the moment. I like TypeScript. I did a lot of Angular development previously. I would like to have TypeScript, but it's quite not fortunate that it doesn't have TypeScript at the moment. Thanks, guys. No need to read that. In the Vue JavaScript file, we have similar structures. Yeah. We have the HTML encapsulated inside the Vue, inside template tag, and we're writing script content finally in style. Back to the state. All right, Sylvia, what exactly you want to know about the state? I can show you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yeah.
I just wanted to understand better the subscribe and update methods, because I'm not used to that syntax. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have sort of like Redux background yet.
Not really.
Okay. So state management is sort of like a state that you manage it throughout the entire app. So you have to sort of like global store that you want to store something, you put it there. Like if you're doing like a social media app, you have some sort of like notifications, you have some things that you want to store globally, you put it in the state, right? And in here, we have, I'm just randomly call it Hoang Store. And in the Hoang Store, you're exporting one sort of like name here, which is like a property that holding the value inside it. And you can access to Hoang Store like anywhere else in the app. And in here, access it by in the main app here. I'm calling it name store. And then you subscribe to it. So subscribing is sort of like you watching if anything happened to this name store thing. And if there's something happened to it, you're running the code inside it. So you're running this, you're assigning this Hoang name to your name here. And then with reactivity, whenever the name changed, you have the uppercase name, and then you can use it down here. So that's the basic idea.
Okay.
And,
so you're saying that the subscribe function is the store's way to know, okay, the name is going to change. You need to watch these changes and change the store accordingly.
Yeah, you
Like,
don't change the store.
Watching the value changes.
Yeah, true. It's more like you're
okay.
watching the value inside the store and you update it accordingly. And actually in the code that I'm showing you here, it's not an ideal code when you're doing with state. The problem with the code is that once you subscribe to it, and then you use it down here, and what I'm saying something like, if I change this if-else statement into the other way around. So if we have something in case name, we don't show it, right? The subscription is still there. And in professional coding and professional developing, you had to unsubscribe it. Otherwise, you're going to end it up in lots of memory leak. And the way you unsubscribe it, you can use on destroy. And whenever like it's not rendered, you can run this on destroy thing, and it can unsubscribe it for you. And yeah. And the other way you can unsubscribe it is that instead of using the subscribe function here, you basically using the name store, but you put a $sign before it. So you're putting some sort of like $sign here, and then you can store something like that. Is another way to unsubscribe it. So in this way, it's going to change it here first. Oh shit. Yep. So for this way, it's going to automatically subscribe and then unsubscribe for you once the DOM is not rendered and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think I've been looking at Vue code a little bit, and I do say that it's sort of like looking like one single 12 bar as well, but I haven't done any Vue developments before.
It's quite similar, because when I saw the script tag and the style tag, I thought, am I seeing Vue here? Because it's very similar.
Okay, but then you have to writing scope to scope out the styling.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think it's more verbose. So you need to write a lot more to achieve the same thing in Svelte. So it seems.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for explaining. That. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna moving on to next questions. Is there any tool for real-time debugging web app using this framework? Yes, it does. I forgot the name, but it does have a library to supporting real-time debugging. And if you mean debugging is like you want to stop the app somewhere, then you want to console log it out, something like that. Yes, it does have.
Yes.
Like if you want to stop the state somewhere.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yes, my question is about what you are describing about real-time debugging when the app is running and then you stop the app to check the value inside.
Yeah, it does have a library supporting just for that. I forgot the name. It's going to stop the app somewhere and checking the current state, so you can checking the value somewhere. Yes, it does support that.
Interesting. Thanks.
Is there any other questions? Great presentation. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your attention. The subscribe and unsubscribe thing is like ReactJS. Are there pipes in Svelte store? Yes, there are. It's sort of like working just like in ReactJS, I would say. Is there anything else anyone want to share or ask VietES? Ask about startup coding. I can start sharing anything.
You're going to share that code?
Yeah, I can share the code if you want. Yeah, I can send it to our moderator and she can send it through emails, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
So I guess there's no question coming up then. If anybody wants to ask more about the codes or anything related to SvelteJS, then you can connect with our presentator through the LinkedIn profile. I will ask him to put the LinkedIn here for you guys so you can connect together through the LinkedIn. And yeah, as mentioned, you can ask more specific question through email as well. So we definitely will send it to you after the web meeting, and also with the recordings and the presentation here from Larry. So thank you so much, Larry, for such an amazing syntax that you perform through the web as well. So it's the end of our presentation, but it's not end yet. We also have the polling for our web meeting that we really want to hear from you guys about our experience here, because this is the first time that we launched such online activities like this. So we would like to know from you through the poll over here, if anyone the poll. So do you guys see the poll right now already, right? So would you mind just put your opinion into the poll? That we really appreciate that. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Will you have another presentations regarding JavaScript content?
Yeah, sure. We will send the content to you after the meeting through email. And yeah, remember to check it.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome. Yes, thank you for you guys attending for our webinar today. And we appreciate your time very much. And we also have a very upcoming event from VietES. We will run a success club for the online activity as well, due to this situation. So the next success club that VietES will organize is something related to finance. If anybody interested in finance, then no hesitation, no like waiting for another events. You can go to our Facebook profile, and also on Eventbrite, we will launch the event next in the end of this month. So yeah, this is all about people sharing their experience in their major, their expertise. And this time will be more concentrated into finance. If anybody interested in finance and want to know more about that, so remember on Saturday, on the 30th of May, then we will launch the event. So here I have a very want you to know more about Success Club and VietES as well. So may I share the screen so that people will, so that you can know more about our organization? So
yes, sure, you can share the screen.
yeah, sure. So this is,
Fun and really cozy, sharing vibe and positive, friendship, inspiring, and fair development.
So yeah, this is it for today.
Thank you very much. Thank
you very much.
Well, it's
Final,
really,
yes.
really nice to be here and really nice to see all of you here. And also, thank you. I want to thank the organizers for inviting me here. When I heard that there's a society of Vietnamese people living in Finland who are interested in entrepreneurship, and they are organizing a gathering every, I don't know how often, every month, every bi-weekly, yeah, wow, and you had 70 people coming here. I think that was just great.
Yes,
and I'm really
yes.
honored to be here.
Yes, thank you so much.
So,
thank you so much for you.
My topic for this talk is called innate confidence. You were born to thrive and succeed, and in these 20 or so minutes that I was giving, I want to introduce you to this this idea that confidence. I'm sure all of you, I don't need to ask you, or I don't need to explain you what confidence means. If there's someone who doesn't know what confidence means, please raise your hand, or someone who thinks it's not something that you